Hello, hello. All right, you guys can hear me. Let's get this thing rolling this evening. So, what I am working on now is the spread, the two-pager, which is coming right along. I've got the cover here. Let's turn the lighting layer on that I completed last week. I wanted to go through and do this, and it's crazy how much stuff you learn from going through and doing the first one. As far as the rendering style, the choices that I'm making, if I can get it to this level of completedness and polish, then I'm in a really good spot to be able to go in and start working on my full spread. This afternoon, I've been going through and I've been working on getting a lot more of the shading going on with this thing, and there's just some choices that I've made along the way that I wanted to talk to you guys about for why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Went through, added the city in the background. You can see that city is not heavily rendered. It is really, really basic right here. There's some other stuff that's going on, right? Over here with the close-up of the redheaded gal, I've created a gradient moving through the background, but it's not just a gradient, right? Just using gradients look pretty cheesy. They don't look all that great. So what I've done is I've got the grass is really what's kind of carrying this gradient too. There's some shading, some texture, some things for the eye to be able to rest on. And I want this to work in contrast with what's going on with her, right? So once I actually shade her, she's going to be much, much brighter. She's going to have a lot of light going on with her. This character here in the middle that's floating and about to get zapped, she's going to have a rim light around her that's going to make her a lot brighter. She's going to be mostly in shadow within her face and this part of her body. I'm going through and I'm starting to work on the shading and doing my shading passes on the gal's hair. Then I'll do the arms. Um, some other interesting things that are happening here with this bright section down at the base. You can see that I've left the background a little bit darker on these two. I want to do that because I'm going to have, like with the cover section, as I get my lighting on, this really bright, um, contrasty, all this visual noise that I'm going to be putting under the gals in this section. She's going to have all those shadows on her right there. And because there's so much visual noise, I wanted to drop the background back quite a bit. Same thing is going to happen over here. This is darker because this is going to end up being much, much brighter. If you look at one of the finished ones over here, this is one of the only areas that I'm using white in my composition, right in this little section. I've got an orange glow around it. I've got some red little dots. There's a lot of little tight details that are going on, really three different colors, right? So we've got this orange, the red, the buttery yellow, the white. There's quite a few colors that I'm going to be still adding to this explosion that's about to happen here. So that's really going to come together in a big way on the page and really start to have a lot more visual emphasis to it than it does right now when we look over here within the thumbnail view on this thing. I'm also excited to do these faces this evening, and they're the close-ups of the eye to be able to really show off the way that the lighting is changing as the explosion is getting closer and closer here. And then I've got the letter boxes to do also. I'm sort of in a segue right now. I can continue working on the hair, but there's something that's been bugging me about this thing up until this point. I think I'm going to leave that decision for the end. But right now, when I zoom back and look at it, I haven't been able to bring this tree form here, or really the trees over here, to the level of lighting that I'd really like for them to end up at and to be towards the end as I move towards the end of this painting. So I've got all my green on one layer. I guess I can go through and let's use the dodge tool. And yeah, just going to start brightening up some of the spots on these trees. Feel like I still need to do an even brighter pass on the trees in the super foreground here, just to be able to make them pop a little bit more and feel like we've got some of that atmospheric perspective that's going on within the shot. Totally forgot about those little branches. Old me was going to take the time to paint in. Oh, when I was young and fresh and we had time. So that'll work for now. But what I'm thinking about doing, we'll see if this works. I think it's worth exploring and checking it out to see if we can get it to go. So this is currently the ultra super brightest green that I have within my composition. And I've got a bunch of different green layers that are going on, but none of them are quite giving me the full pop that I want these to have. So my brush is on the fuzzy brush right now. Let's turn it to the hard brush. And I'm gonna start really going in and highlighting some of these leaves. What I want to do here, I'm same layer. Yeah, it's new layer. So the idea is that I want to create, yeah, that's already starting to work the way that I wanted it to. A little bit more contrast, a little bit more brightness, a little bit more pull within this part of the composition. So the atmospheric perspective starts to work. Right now, I was feeling pretty flat with where the leaves are at. I'm just going to go in and start painting some of these leaves in here, giving myself a variety of different shapes. My classic heart-shaped leaf that I always end up, my hand sort of always wants to do. I'm sure there's a lot of other trees, and I'd love to sit down someday and just explore different leaf mark making techniques to get a wider swath of visual choices that I make in this regard. But for now, I always end up doing these sort of leafy shapes and drawing those in, just like this. All right, so yeah, when we look down at the thumbnail image, I'm constantly looking down there. You can see that it's starting to pop. It's starting to come together. The leaves are starting to feel finally bright enough. They're still, this is sort of a minty colored green. I don't know how crazy I am about it, but it's doing something here, which something needed to happen. Yeah, so getting the opportunity to be able to do some tighter little highlights on some of these leaves as well. And where we see one of these shadows, that's kind of a good indicator that you can put something really bright right next to it, or the top of it. Yeah, I think it doesn't feel all that confident visually, what I'm doing right now with the leaves. So hopefully this gives it a little bit more of a confidence boost as we're starting to get the way that it's painted. I like that under there, get some highlights. All right. Ooh, my next door neighbors have got a dog that has been, when it starts barking, that is its favorite thing to do in the entire world. It's its pastime. I think it wants to be on American Idol or America's Got Talent or something like that. Like it is just practicing its singing voice all the time. It's having a bark fest right now. Feels great outside today too. In the springtime. Let's check it out. How's that feeling? All right, much better. Giving me some better coloration there. And let's see if I can't do something else just to make it sing a little bit more. So going back to my reference image here, I've got this super bright, almost white yellow color. And I'm going to try to start overlaying some of that into this tree. So I'm still on my hard brush, switch over to my soft brush, and we're going to do just a couple swipes of this in here. All right, that's feeling more like it. And let's take the tree itself, push, and I'm going to try and now I'll just do another little under layer pass. There we go, just to brighten some of this stuff up just a little bit more right around the edges. Starting to feel a little bit stronger for me. And yeah, now it's starting to get that good contrast that I wanted. So let's go in here at the very end, and I'm just going to, oops, underside of this tree. Darken some of these bits a little bit more to give it a little bit more depth. Contrast to some of these areas, especially back here. All right. Cool. That feels stronger than me. It feels more textural. I think it's working better on the page. And I'm still not entirely satisfied with it. So let's see. This is Leaf Edger Canopy Creator. All right. I'm on a new layer right now. And I barely want to use these guys. All right, so that started to work for me, but I don't like the minty green quite as much as I thought I would. I think it's also contrasting over the right-hand side. So I'm going to grab that minty green layer, this one, and let's push it. So I'm going to go, when I run into a situation like this is sort of clean up and fixing things. So we're going to be using some yellow elsewhere in the piece. We can go with the saturation up just a little bit higher, get a little bit more green. All right. Let's turn that saturation down. That's where we're getting that minty kind of gray from. That's it, pure white. We are just about at pure white with that stuff. So over here, I can see we've adjusted the colors just a little bit on it. Turn some of it down. There we go. So there's a little less of it. We're starting to create a little bit more of a focal point, so it's not quite as broad and spread out. But I think that's doing the trick of separating that canopy tree from the rest of the shot. There's probably a little bit more that I need to do with the grass. This is a good thing to talk to you guys about. So rendering grass. When I'm rendering my grass here, you'll notice that it is made up of a whole bunch of different colors. Just regular old green for grass isn't really going to get you there at a more professional, refined level. So we need to get a lot of hues that are going on with this. And the trick for doing the grass and making it look nice and polished and textural, I think a lot of you guys were already doing this with the landscape painting project very, very nicely, is to give yourself different spots of color, different regions of color. This is a lot like painting the ocean or a lake or a river or something like that. So you can see as I start to move back here into my shadow regions on the grass, I've got sort of a mossy green. I've got my regular green that's going on there, and a little bit of hunter green that's happening. Same thing with this one. I think get down to all my green layers. There they all are. I can take my burn tool now and start to just darken up some of these hues way back here. Trying to darken up some of this stuff. Oops, out of my layer. There it is. I'll darken up some of this stuff, even though I still want to create some of those lighting effects that I had within the foreground. Still just want to darken this up so that the highlights pop a little bit more within the foreground. For what it is that I'm doing, I can also go and use my dodge tool and let's give these ladies a little bit more of a highlight or a spotlight on them as well. Yeah, so now they're looking quite a bit better, but by doing that, all these little brush strokes are starting to show up from one of the brushes that I'd used in there. So I'm just going to hide some of those. If you overuse the textured brushes, people are going to know that you're using those textured brushes. They're going to be able to tell it from a mile away. So we don't want to telegraph it too much. When I say the textured brushes, I mean like the stamp brushes within Photoshop. Okay, so that's working much better for me. I think we've got quite a bit more contrast going on in there. We've still got a lot of local color that's happening within this scene. That's the idea that the grass is green, the trees are green, the sky is blue, the buildings are gray, the tree trunks are brown. And I'm hoping that as I start to get into my shadow pass on this thing, that things really start to come to life a little bit more. So what's going to be helpful for me to show you guys next? With the city, man, I'll be honest with you. I downloaded an illustration of a city skyline. I didn't really care about it too much, and then I went through and modified it and edited it with the colors to be able to drop that in there. I also added a blur to it just to be able to make it drop back a little bit more, just so that there's a little bit more rhythm within the upper part of the scene in the shot. Yeah, we got each one of these choices is pretty neat to be able to do. I'm trying to think what's going to give you guys the best visual solution here. Let's do start off with a bang. Let's do the explosion. Okay, so for the explosion, I can do the white, but once I do the white, I can't really do anything else with it. So for the explosion over here on the bottom right-hand side, I know that my next stop is going to be that orange. So let's go with an outer glow first. We're just going to try that and see what happens. Outer glow. All right, that's looking good. I like it up there at the top, not so much at the bottom. There we go. That's more like it. Got the opacity that I can turn up or down. I like it all the way up on screen. I think that works pretty well. We'll leave it at screen, but let's just adjust it just a little bit more. That's starting to get me some of those orange tones in there that I really like. Lighten, it's all right. Screen. Hard light's pretty darn good there. I think hard light might be the winner for now. Okay, so we've got a glow. Instantly that changed our shot quite a bit. Now we can start working on top of this layer. The next thing that I want to do is go in and get those little flakes of red. I'm interested in this hue, whatever that is, this little orange color. And I've also got some more of it over here. I think that's more of a pure tone of it. Now I'll start painting that into this shot as well. So let's create our first new layer here. I've still got my leafy brush created. Dot cluster scattered, that could work pretty good for this portion of it. All right, we're definitely going to have to do some more things with this. Man, that just sort of, it's not giving me what exactly I'm looking for. Sparks trail? Golly, let's try that one. That'll work. All right, so this is giving me a good opportunity to be able to create, yeah, this is working just fine. Some more texture and color within our scene. And so what I want to do, right? The white, the yellow is the brightest portion of this. I'm sure you guys have all watched some kind of cartoon or something over the years where there's actually an explosion going on in there. And I'm always stressing you guys, look at references, go find references. If you've ever actually you can go to YouTube and you can look up all these cartoons. You look up all these cartoons that you used to watch when you were younger and hit the space bar, hit the pause button on that YouTube video, and really take a good, get your artist eyes and goggles on for how it is that they are creating those explosions. What are the shapes that they're using? What are the different color systems that they're implementing to be able to make that explosion really, really read and work? All right, so this is the fun part over those trees that I previously had in there. I'm going to pull this pink way up. There it goes. Over everything? Not quite. There it is. Yep. We want to get this pink going all over this stuff. Because I can do an overlay or something else on this. Guess it's not really interacting with the lights right now. So our sparks, with them going up into the sky to get something a little bit more kinetic. They are existing throughout this entire shot. It's the biggest explosion shockwave ever. So what did I do? Started with a flat color, I added a glow on it. I'm going to end up painting some white over the very top of this thing. Still want some of those little energy bits and beams that I had going on before on the outside. That feels good. Get the bottom right-hand side done. Well, there have been a lot of projects within these videos over the past 16 weeks. And I think that what I'm doing right now is sort of the culmination of all those different techniques that I've been trying to get you guys to think about, right? I'm thinking about the contrast from the black and white project, right? Where we were only able to use one middle gray in pattern, how that works and how we're leading the viewer's eye through the painting. Yeah, so can you imagine being a manga artist and you just, you're rendering these stuff like this for 20 years? It's a lot of diagonal lines they end up creating in that profession. Okay, cool. So that's working a little bit better for me. We've got the pink in there. It's a good start. Let's not neglect our pink, the outside too. If it's there, we're gonna render it the right way. All right. And now we're in a good spot to go in and add the white to the shot. Right, so the white. We're gonna go one layer up. The first thing I want to do with our super bright white here, almost white. Let's leave it there for now. Is start shading out our gal. All right, so she's sort of where all the light is emanating from. And even with this white within the explosion, all right, it's not all going to be just pure white on the inside. I'm kind of creating these cloud shapes. So they're sort of ocular, sort of rounded, and this is just giving a lot of brightness to what's going on with her. But I'm still making sure, yeah, there it is. Now that it's starting to look super bright, we can go ahead and shade all this in right under her. There it is. So our explosion now is as bright can be within our current shot. Um, and the color system that I'm getting with the pink in there, and it's not quite working for me. So let's go back to that pink layer and let's see if we can't edit or modify that into something else that mixes with my colors just a little bit better. With the red, that's not too bad. Oop, that's aggressive. The darkness there, that's kind of interesting. Super bright streaks of blue. I'm looking at my navigator view right now to make sure that this is working and if it's something I want to move forward with. Okay, so that's a little bit less of it. It's integrating some of that pink in there. We ran out of options. So there's something else I need to do with this. I could likely make a secondary glow going around the entire thing. It's normal. All right, there. Got a little bit of the color. I still want to leave it in there. I think on the grass with the orange, I think that works pretty good. I like it turning more of a blue as we get to the top. I think I can work with that. Okay. So next up, we've got a really kinetic, powerful feeling explosion that's happening right now. Let's go back in with that orange color, and I want to paint just a little bit more of a light glow. So what I mean by that is right now in this explosion, yeah, it's bright on the inside. It's got a little bit of glow happening here, but there's nothing really going on within this upper region on the trees and within this section of the painting. So I'm on a new layer and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to, oh, that looks great. I'm on a new layer. So we've got all these hard lines that we've created. Now I want to create something that is just a little bit softer going across the ground. Through this space. So this is sort of a glow for all the other stuff. Around here, working well for me. I got a little bit of green that's starting to show up in there, but we should be in a pretty good spot. So let me take this brush, opacity, 27%. It looks like I'm just being super messy. Always keeping an eye on my navigator view down there. All right, so now we're starting to get somewhere with this. Our buildings have almost completely disappeared. And let's try our layer interpretation. We should get something that's going to brighten all this up. It's okay. Yeah, that's too acidic. The pink is okay. I like that. Blue's kind of cool, but it doesn't really match the energy blast that we've described here. So I might need to change the color. Let's try modifying it. All right, so that's what I got. Let's go to image, adjustments, hue, saturation. And, that's the thing, man. There's a lot of this where it is sort of just exploring. There's the hue. There's a little bit more pink. Let's go up with the saturation. Let's go up with the lightness. Okay. So I'm keeping an eye on my navigator. This might be one that a layer that I come back to here in a bit and start modifying and adjusting a little bit more. So that's a really, really bright pink that's going on with this. Ooh, that's kind of nice. But it looks gross up on the city. That feels good and powerful. That particular shade of pink right there. That might be the winner. Okay. So that's making it feel brighter. Like that with the neon pink. I can turn it down just a little bit so it's not quite as bright, but I think that's giving me the look that I had in mind for this. So it's feeling better. We're getting good and layered up. It certainly feels like a super bright explosion on the scene. Can also go through and change out the line color within this portion of her so that it's orange as well. But for now, I like that. It's pretty easy to read that she's on the inside there. All right, so that does a lot to pull my eye within the composition over to the bottom right-hand side. It's serving its function, and now it's going to be tricky to paint this thing so that I'm not trying to make everything else as bright and contrasty as that bottom piece is. Once you move up to something that white and that bright within your shot, I think that subconsciously you start to sort of push and pull against it, right? So you start making decisions, within your composition around that heat spot. It's the same reason why when we start painting, I always like to begin with a gray background so that when I'm making my colors and picking my color choices, that I'm not picking things that are against like a white background. If it's against the white background, then every color choice that you pick ends up being super saturated, trying to get highlights to actually show up on a white background. God, next to impossible. So difficult to be able to do. Got nowhere else to go. as bright as it can be, as bright as it can get. So, painting in the shadows real quick on her hair. This is fun. She's got a good shadow that's going on. Even though this is going to be pretty bright here, let's actually get done with it. Shadow pass, that's looking good. We're working on the hair last week. You're going to see me jump back into that other illustration for the shadows and all the other initial choices that I'm making with these characters. That's working for me. We've got some more hair to be able to do. Let's turn off our effects layer. So she had this highlight layer on her, but we don't want to do that one yet. We want to do this gal's highlights. Or sorry, the shadows within her hair. Trying to paint some volume as if the hair is sort of on a shelf, or like if there's a cardboard tube or something in the middle there. So we get the idea that it's sort of laying back and flowing on the ground. Here we are. Shadows going from the top of her temple. Important. That'll work for her highlight pass on the hair. And now we got this gal. So she's got a super deep purple shadow inside of her hair at first. And there's a lot of modifications that I did to it, but that'll get us started here. I'm going to take a look at the little version of the gals now, and just very quickly. Oh no, that's all right. And just a little bit of a low light there. And now let's go through and knock out those highlights fairly quickly. I'm going to do this on a new layer. So my highlight layer on the gal's hair. Working over top on a new layer from the, what should we call it? The shadow layer that I just put in there. She is looking up at the light coming from up above. So I'm starting up high on this character. We can also do some little ones to show that the hair is going the opposite direction. These are going to be the main core highlights, and then everything else is going to be a little thinner, a little less after this part on her. Get about the hair going down the back. It needs to catch some lighting as well. Again, I can think of it as there's sort of a dip in the hair or the head right within that section, so I know that it doesn't need a highlight as much. Get a little bit right there just for a little bit of contrast, and just some other little areas that are catching it. And that'll look pretty good for me. Let's go in. Let's do the scale's hair, moving sort of double time right now. I'm going to go back and highlight these in just a moment. But again, thinking about 63%, go up on her. Where those highlights are going to be. There it is. I'm using my my brackets on my keyboard quite a bit to be able to change my brush size while I'm working very rapidly. And gosh, it looks like all those highlights are pretty much the same color. I didn't use the brightness shift as much on her. We'll get some of these in here. And this by change, so I've got my pin pressure on, and then I'm also changing the brush size. This helps to keep me from having uniform highlights or colors within my shot, or just pin marks that I'm creating. Let's get in here and let's start painting in those highlights on her in this section. So again, we want to start with the highlights for what is the brightest part going to be. I'm going to use the dodge tool on her in just a moment. This is all pretty darn highlighted up here. This is catching a lot of the light. And we want this to be much, much brighter as the what you call it, the comet The energy blast is coming in, really highlighting out her hair right now. It looks funky for now, but as we start to add more contrast and shadow into the skin, it'll start to make more sense. And then we're going to let it dissipate just a little bit as we move further back. These guys are all going to get a lot of lighting too. There we go. It's looking good. All right, so now her purple yellow hair, man, that is some kind of color combination. Up here, let's go in, and I've got my dodge tool selected. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to push some of those highlights up even further. This is where, whenever you see anime renderings, they've usually got the little tiny the bar of dots going across their head. This is how they're doing that. I think this is why they do it, because it's really easy. Next up, I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the burn tool now on the character's hair. And what I want to do with the burn tool is just start to drop out some of this stuff a little bit more. Paint in those shadow regions. So we've got a contrast between the purple. Same thing's going on with her hair. Where some of the darker areas, same thing with her hair. And now with this gal's hair, where are the darker regions? And now we need to get to the highlights, and let's do that with this. Okay. Really want to push those highlights quite a bit on her hair here. Really get the idea. And then I can go back to my main core layer, just brighten up a bunch of this stuff here. That's all feeling pretty good. So we got the character's hair rendered out. We are on the highlights. So while we're on the highlights, let's just go ahead and pick out some of these really tiny. Them. Don't want to do too much because they are awfully tiny little characters, but that'll work. Okay. We got the hair done. That's looking good. Still got that final shadow lighting pass that I'm going to put on all this, but I think the next useful thing for you guys to check out is me maybe doing the girl who's being possessed. So let's go in and same process. We're going to knock out her hair. And I said that I wanted to have some other options and some things that are going on with her. I think her hair is, yeah, all together in each shot. It's the same process, you guys, every single time, right? Shadow pass, 80%. We're on a soft brush. That's okay. Yeah, really, really tiny. Yeah, no, let's turn to the sharp one. Yeah, we are on the sharp one. Cool. So it's all about that contrast with this one, right? We've got, she is the thing that I want the audience to look at within this frame, right? And each one of these frames on this, in your pages, are really their own little paintings, right? They're their own little scenes that are balanced with the rest of your shot. So they need to work with it, enhance the flow of the page, but have their own rules and principles of composition. That does not go away, right? We're still thinking about where are we directing the viewer's attention? How is the audience viewing this? How are we using the environment and the things that we're making to be able to draw the viewer's attention to where it is we want them to look? So that's what I'm trying to do here by shading the base of this girl's hair so much. We're going to imagine that she's got a shadow. Oops, that's too much. The fuzzy brush. Right here. Once that's going to be shaded, we'll give her some highlights. Back to my sharp brush. Still at 80% what I'm working with. And yeah, I said I wanted to add a backlight to her, which we can certainly do. And some high contrast on this character as she gets into the sunlight. And out. All righty. Bam, bam, bam. That'll work. Go in, right. We got our highlight pass to do on her next. So working on a new layer here. 80%. About where the lighting is coming from. We still want that lighting from the tree within this bottom left shot. So it mimics the cover's style. Keeping that in mind. Now on her, we know that we want the lighting coming from behind. Now, this is going to have a lot more contrast to it. Get those guys in there, up on top. Trying to make good shape language with my my shapes. I'm always trying to keep that in mind. Might end up doing a an inner glow around her. With this thing, but now let's not forget about those highlights. You're really trying to paint this thing as the light starts to hit. All right. All right, that's working well for me. Don't forget to save your projects, guys. And when you're saving your projects, gosh, please do it on a on some kind of digital drive or cloud storage space. I've seen so many jump drives, etc., get lost, left in computers, break down at the end of semesters. Cloud storage, man. I know it feels like another expense in your life, but it really will save your work. Okay, so let's go in and let's do her skin next. I think it's time. And if we're doing her skin, then we're doing her eyeballs. We're going to do these two little frames as well. These guys. All right. So first up with the eyeballs, I want to grab my white. Now the first one, we want to have those shadows that are going on right around her. Sorry, I'm trying to think through this. If I want to do the sort of leafy shadows, like the bright highlights from the cover, or if I just want to leave it a little bit darker and just sort of normal shaded. I don't know. Figure it out. It's a decision I need to make pretty soon now. All right. So next up, we've got the eyeballs. So for the eyeballs here, yellow light. With this one, we're going to go black. With a little bit of that yellow right around the edge. If she's starting to mimic the eclipse within her eyes, I like it. And yeah, that's sort of the baseline here for what I needed to shade. I really haven't used too much blue. Okay, I guess that's my blue that I'm using within my shot. Go ahead and put this blue color up on a new layer. Leave this here for now. It's likely going to get some type of highlight or teardrop. So next thing, it's we can render out the heck of those eyeballs quite a bit, but I want to get some of the skin tone within there first. So with the skin tones, I'm going to begin with the shadows on this character. So she's got a very pink shadow from the cover. I'm going to go down to and let's turn this down quite a bit. So because I'm using such a light tone and color, there we go. And then that is her jawline over here. So oops. I suppose that needs to be black. And let's get any other shadow colors that we have. Yeah, it's like all pink. Pink and white. Cool. That's looking pretty good for now. It's just the black color. Let's go in and add some more of that pink tone just on the edges of our highlights. Too much. Yeah. Just a little bit right there, just to give it a little bit more interest. And now we're ready for the highlights on this character on the left. And our goal here is to create enough contrast. New level. There we go. We're starting to see the highlight going on within her. Yeah, I think I need to do the light effect over the top of her face. But it's looking pretty good. I got my blue layer. There's my whites. Let's go ahead and put this in on the white layer as well. I don't think I'm going to be changing that too much. Blue on its own layer. Here we go. So now for the eyes, they are going to need a little bit of shading going on with them. So how do we shade eyes? We've got a pure white cornea. I'm going to use the purple color that has served us so well throughout this entire project for my shadows. Work, and let's get some of the pink just to give her some real good. So the next thing that I want to do, layer 115. Let's give that cornea some type of other color going on the top of it. Maybe our purple can work again. Yeah, there we go. And last thing that I want to do here is start grabbing some of these colors from other spots within my shot. Got my fuzzy brush on. It is turned to 28%. In the same way that I got the ring going around the light up here, just trying to mimic that same look. Right, that's going on with her eyes. She's staring into the eclipse. So let's try my layer blend style. See if I get anything interesting here. Kind of either losing it in that white or just kind of nice there. The pink, that's too bright. Yeah, definitely not normal. Okay. Yeah, I think that'll work with a little bit of the orange on it. Is working pretty good for me. And I need to, again, add something like this over the top of her. So what I've got here is some pure white that's going on with a little bit of orange around the outside of it. And after I get that done over here on this side, then I'll go back and add it. Other things that I can do, since this little section is such a height illustration, I can go in and a little bit of shading. Let's go with 100. I always end up selecting my layers. Actually, a really messy drawer. Over the black, just giving it a little bit of texture on the inside. A bit more depth. So that looks just a little bit stronger. And I've still got room to be able to push up my highlight there, but for the most part, we worked through this section pretty quickly. Let's go in and one last little touch. Let me use the burn tool just a little bit in some of these areas. And we've got our skin tone. And what I'm doing is I'm creating more of a focal point. For the vignette right around the character. Okay, that's working pretty good. And that is making our white color stand out. So the white might still be just a little bit too bright. Grab that. Where's my white layer? 23. No. 14. Yeah, 114. Okay, so what I want to do next is let's grab one of these random purples. Let's these up to 100. I'm trying to darken that eyeball up just a little bit more. Okay. So by darkening that eye more than I think I originally should have, and line it just a little bit more, it's going to look stronger. That's going to make our piece look better. And now I've got a little bit more room to be able to work if I want to go in and add over the top of that white here. This of it up there. That worked for me. This line now is feeling a little bit less finished than it did before. There we go. Now the eyeball feels good and popping out of the page as well as glowy. Yeah, I think the last thing that we could do maybe is there's a little bit more glow that's going on over the top of the eyeball here in this shot. I want to use my glowy line. There it is. All right. So that's giving me just the same kind of look that's going on with the eclipse over at the top. There we go. I like it that our eyes are stuck right on that, and we're getting our first good close-up of it. So now we get to do this in contrast over on the right-hand side where things are becoming unbearably bright within this shot. So this one should have a lot more whiteness on it, a lot more brightness within the scene. So that highlight that we saw a second ago is going to get even brighter. Her skin tone is already brighter. So let's grab our medium skin tone and see what we can do with that for these shadows. Yeah, that's giving me a little bit of shadow, just enough that I need. I can always go in, this is on its own layer, so I can darken this up here in just a bit. But I want to repeat some of that same shape language I had here before. Bit of our nose going on down towards the very edge. Same ideas. Okay, there we go. So that's looking good and bright. I use my burn tool just a bit. Face. And now let's get something that is even brighter than this, which is already almost completely white. We also want some yellow. It's going to start to creep into this thing right around the edges. I'm not going to let it be fully bright because we want to be able to see even some of the pores within their skin. Definitely want to show that there's a marked difference here. And another great way to be able to do that is to really brighten up her eye makeup as well. That's working good for me. Yeah, we want to get some of that yellow or that orange that's going on within the shot, since this takes place right before explosion. My white layer, empty layer, to be able to put some of that orange in there. End up changing this color in a little bit. Over the shaded areas. Okay, so that is looking good and contrasty. So let's go to image adjustments, hue saturation, and we are going to change the hue on that to a yellow. Go with the lightness. And up the saturation. I like it. That's looking good and bright. Comparing the two. And let's get on that layer. So we need to separate that out. Control X, Control Shift B to be able to paste it in the same spot. Go to image adjustments, hue saturation. Let's go with the lightness at first. Saturation, we're going to make it more saturated. I like that. There, the purple's good. There it goes. So that's looking super, super bright. And now we want to really be able to get some of those colors going on around the eye. The eyeball, even though we are as bright as we can get on the eye for right now. There it is. Still needs to have some kind of shading or it's not going to look right. So before we were able to use some of this purple. Let's still use some of that purple around the eye, even though it's catching so much of the light. And other things that we need to do here. To get some of that super bright pink. A little bit of shading where we can. And the same deal. So you see how we got the orange and the other colors going on within the iris. That stuff still needs to exist within there. So we got some of this blue that I want to paint in. Oops, the iris. And then around it, we've got our bright orange color, which I used from over here. We're going to add a lot more white over the top of that eyeball too, which should give us the effect that we're going for. That's looking super bright. And now we just need that white within over the top of this. Do, 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 do. Fire. I really don't like using white because once you go there, you can't go any brighter. I was having a few steps to be able to move back from is a good idea. So even with her being super bright here, I like the way that's looking. It still needs and some kind of shadow. Textured line. All right, and last thing on this one, so that eye drop, white over top of it. Okay, so I think that's starting to read pretty well there. Again, the one on the left-hand side, I still want to add the lighting effects. Uh, this stuff over the top of her to show her just starting to sort of break out. But I think we're getting the contrast that we're looking for within that section. Next up, man, it's about going through and shading the red-headed gal, getting the skin tones correct on her. Turn off that lighting layer and find my shadow color on her, which is sort of this color right here. And we're going to get her shaded up next. But let's do that in the next video. I think that this is more than enough for right now to be able to go through and get the skin tones. With them, save your project. And yeah, this should look pretty good. Within the next video, I think will be able to finish this thing off. I might still need to add the text at the very end here, but this came a long way. So some big decisions happening. I hope this helped you understand a little bit about how to be able to add more polish and finish to your pieces, how to be able to make those creative decisions and think a little bit outside the box with the way that you're working. And these are just going to continue to look better and better, you guys, as you continue to go through and work on them. There's still a bunch of big decisions that I can make within my shot, and this is still going to come together quite a bit. But the artistic process, I always love this part of it because each new choice is like putting together a puzzle piece, right? And it's starting to look more finished. It's starting to look more completed. And just like putting a puzzle together, you get more excited as you start to get towards the other side of the hill and start to get towards, actually finishing what it is that you're working on. And that's sort of what I'm rounding out to here. And I'm really excited to see how neat she's going to look with all the lighting on her and dropping in those shadows and getting this gal with the backlighting on her. It's going to look really cool once it's done. There's some fun visual things that are happening on this page. So come back for the next video, and yeah, thanks for having me.